Alrighty, picking up where we left off. Alright, so now we've got all this data that we've extracted from the simulator program, and we've extracted specifically the chaff count. And in order to use that, we kind of have to create like a little pouch, like a little carry pouch that we're going to store the data in, so we can use it. Basically, want to call them the variable. And remember, back in the object browser, because let's see, on their flight data, the chaff count, because it was a float. And remember, C# is a strongly typed language, so we have to make our variable a float variable because chaff count is typed that way. So we're going to create one up here, and I'm going to call this, first I'm going to use the keyword public, and then float. And you'll notice, if you haven't already, that reserved words used in programming show up in blue when you complete them. So that gives you an idea. Obviously, you don't want to call your variables, exactly like you don't want a variable called public because it's already used as it's a reserved word. You don't want to call a variable float, but you could use a variable called myPublic or myFloat, and C#'s case sensitive, so you could go my and capitalize the P, and you'd be probably pretty safe, with your variable name that way. But I'm going to call this one my, and then chaff, and then count. And you notice there's some conventions used when making variables in C#. One of the conventions is variables usually start with a lowercase, and then each word is capitalized after the lowercase. The first letter is capitalized. You see here chaff is capitalized, and then count is capitalized. Kind of trying to make the variable safe by making it, really different from any reserved words. So that's part of that convention where, kind of habits you want to get into, so you don't, screw yourself further down the line with compiler errors or syntax errors. And then a semicolon at the end. Also, you notice these little red squibbles. That means something's missing. In this case, I haven't put another parentheses here. Remember, for if conditional statement, you need an opening or a bracket and a closing bracket, and I haven't put one in here, a closing bracket yet, and that's why it's saying, giving a little red squiggle, hey, you forgot something. It's really cryptic and won't exactly tell you what you forgot, but it is telling you, hey, dummy, you forgot something. And okay, so now we've created this little sack, gunny sack or whatever we're carrying around, and we've already extracted data from the flight sim, but we want to stuff that data in our own personal little sack, and then we're going to use that little sack. So I've created the variable, and now that I've created it, I can use it, and that's what I'm going to do now. And then you also notice, because we just created the variable, it shows up in our autocomplete, right here, my chaff count. Kind of a clue that you've done it halfway right. And so we're going to make it equal to our shared, or actually make it equal to my shared, this object here, my shared mem, autocomplete, had to pop up, there it is, my shared mem. And then we're going to remember this, my shared mem is right here, is the object we created from the flight data class. And then we're going to use the dot attribute here, or operator, to pull up what's available to us in this object that we created here, this flight data object, my shared mem. This shows us what's available here. We've got horizontal position. These are all related to the simulator. tell where air bases are. Here's auxiliary TACAN. We're auxiliary TACAN. This is great for simulator guys. We're trying to draw data out of the simulator, and here we have a whole list of all this stuff we can use. You can use all of this. This is awesome. Here for the flight sim guys, the DED lines, you've got all the DED lines available for if you're building a DED, and it gives your heading, your course, all kinds of stuff. Here's the flare count, and then back up to our chaff count, which is what we want, and our semicolon. Okay, so now we have our little variable. We set it equal to the data that's in the flight data shared object, my shared mem object. And so now there's going to be the program's going to go flight sim. It's going to check if flight sim, the Falcon 4 flight sim is running. If it's running, it's going to pull all the flight data out of it, and then it's going to take that chaff count out of that flight data and dump it into our little pouch here. My public float little pouch here, and then we have it in our little container. Now we can use it, and so because it's in our little variable, our little container, our little pouch, my chaff count, we're now almost done. Now we just have to send that to the text box, and so I can go. Okay, so now going back to our, our form here, we have our text box, and remember we called it in properties. What did we call it? My chaff text box. Okay. So hold on a sec. Alright. So we're going to my text box. We called it my chaff text box. I'll just go in here. I hate to type, so I'm just going to copy the name. Remember, that was the name we gave to my text box. This one here, the only one we have. That's the programming name we gave to it. And see. Alright, so my chaff text box, and when you create originally created the project, Windows, the C# Express does a lot of work in the background. You see all these other using. There's a lot of other classes here. All these different generic classes, component model classes, drawing class. These are all running in the background to create the form in the first place. So there's a lot of those that are already been created and part of the system, and so they're already there. And when you use the program a while, you'll start picking up how which ones are always there and which ones you'll use a lot. So in this case, there's like a text box class already created for us, and that's what when we're in the designer and we go to the toolbox, all these tools have to have a class created for them, and then methods and attributes all created for them. And similar to the DLL, where we borrow someone else's, well, these are already included in the IDE, and somebody's already written all these classes for the text box, for the button, for the form itself, and so that's what we're going to use here in this line. We're going to use the dot operator here, and then we're going to use go down to text, and then set that equal to. So basically we're taking our box, the name of our box, and we're using that class, and we're using like the text function or attribute. I don't know which one it is, and then we're going to take and we're going to insert our data into that text box. We're going to send it to that text box. So we're going to use the my chaff count variable that we created up here, the public float, my chaff count variable. Alright. we use that variable, and then once again one of these built-in classes, a string class here, because remember, because it's a strongly typed language, C# is, you can't just take a float number. And here once again you see the little squiggly, we haven't put our semicolon at the end, so let's say dummy, you forgot something. But I digress. But anyways, because of C# strongly typed language, you have to do a lot of conversions. If you have in this case we have a variable that's a float, a real number, and we want to convert it to a string that we can print out in a text box, then we have to use this toString function to convert it. That's all that is there, and it's built into the IDE, into the language itself. And I'm running out of time, so I'll pick this up. See ya.